Mystery boxes work a little different. Let's say you have wholesale or bulk sale lots, or you have extra that you want to get rid of. You can do a mystery box. You can say, I can guarantee that there is $100 minimum of value in here according to eBay or according to market value at
This is going to be so rough. I can't believe he recommended this. Hey, what's going on, loungers? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Mason T, and I am a 20+ year importer and product developer. So week in and week out, I constantly use this intro over and over again to let you guys know that specifically what I do is private labeling. And I have gone over that in this space, okay? We are all doing e-commerce at different levels. And what reselling is the entry level. It is the beginning level of what the e-commerce space is. And you could level up from there. You could evolve from there, but we all need to start somewhere. So when you think about exactly what reselling is and how to even begin, what do they tell you to do? Find some stuff from home and then just go ahead and sell those things. And once you've sold those things, go ahead and go to an estate sale, a garage sale, a thrift store or something, and then pick up more items and then try to sell those things. So it is at its most basic form, isn't it? It's the most simplistic form of getting into e-commerce. Because when you think about what is involved with reselling, it's basically just 4 steps, okay? It's going to be the whole sourcing, processing, listing, finally packing and shipping. So on my channel, I teach that there are other levels, such as making your own goods at home, right? As well as dealing with other wholesalers out there so that you can start buying items in bulk, as well as becoming a white labeler or a private labeler, and you are importing goods from overseas so that you lower the cost of stuff even further. Now, what do these 4 things all have in common? What is the common denominator here versus what reselling is? It's that everything on this side is replenishable items. That's what the one thing that they all have in common. And when you have replenishable goods, a world of opportunities open to you, because now you can start promoting what your item is. So basically today's video is going to be this one, which is what Damian from Resellutions does, okay? And it's called Try These 5 Reseller Growth Hacks. Now, I wouldn't have called any of these things of what he's about to list as reseller growth hacks or hacks in any way. They're just regular business ideas and business structures and stuff. But essentially, you know, he is also singing a different tune now, right? He is talking more about like private labeling because he finally has his first private label item and he's starting to see the light. And this is exactly what I've been preaching on my channel the whole time, that there are better ways to make money. You definitely want to start off somewhere. So it's okay to be a reseller at first, but that is the sandbox. That is the tutorial. You're not supposed to stay there forever, because if you try to level up as a reseller, eventually it gets very chaotic and it becomes more physical labor than you can handle. Because what reselling is run on entirely elbow grease. While all of the other business models that I mentioned, whether it's home goods or white labeling, private labeling, your efforts compound over time. If I had to make a very simple analogy, it would be the idea that reselling is kind of like when you don't have any kind of plumbing installed whatsoever. I got to get water to the house right now. So let me go down to the lake, get a couple of buckets, and then bring them upstairs, bring them up the hill over to the house, because I got to get water into the house right now. Does it work? Absolutely, it works. You're physically bringing buckets into the house. But over time, every single day, we want to set up piping. We want to set up, you know, water from the source over to the house. We want to set up some kind of plumbing system so that eventually we're not carrying buckets physically back and forth to the house, right? We could just turn on a faucet and get water directly into the house. And that is what I'm talking about. If every single other type of business, as you get more established, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to build that foundation so that you have that whole pipeline from supplier over to your sales channel. And that's not what happens in reselling, because what happens when you sell your item? The listing goes along with it, and then you have to go out and then get more. So you're constantly doing this whole back and forth. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so we're going to let him talk, and then I'm going to do my best to, you know, offer some insight and let him speak as much as possible, because I've already tried to do this video about 3 or 4 times, and my critique actually went on for 2 hours every single time when he only spoke for 13 minutes. So that balance is way off, okay? So I'm gonna do my best to just let him speak and then keep my critique to a minimum.
reselling the way you know it is working. You buy one, you sell one. why not explore other methods of making money that can work alongside it and multiply your success?
Well, the video already starts off with kind of a false premise, right? Because the question isn't about like whether reselling works or not. It absolutely does work. The question is, does it work well? And is it the best use of your time? Now, the whole premise of you buy one and then you sell one, yes, that is theoretically, that's how it's supposed to work on paper. But is that what actually happens in practice? And a lot of you would agree with me that no, that's not what happens in practice. You go out and you bring 20 things home. That means you're going to sell 20 things? No. A portion of your stuff is going to sell immediately. Another portion is going to take a little more time. And then another portion is going to take a lot more time, if not ever sell at all. If that wasn't the case, then why do these gurus every now and then put out a video and say, like, if you have stuck items, you probably need to go back and check your listings. And if your listings are good and it's still not selling, then maybe your item was dead in the water to begin with and you need to discard or donate this item. Why do they need to say stuff like that? Damian himself has put out a video that I have critiqued in the past of 100 items on his back end that didn't sell after a whole year on his account. So how do you account for that stuff? I just buy one and then it sells? No, that's not what actually happens in reselling. It's more like you buy stuff and then you attempt to sell and you really don't find out if it definitely will sell or not until it actually does. Every single business out there, when they're trying to do this type of business, they need proof of concept first. And what that means is that we want to buy an item that we want to try, that we research, that we try to, match it up with the market that people are looking for. We think it is a trending item. So then when we try this item, we have a reasonable sample size, somewhere around like 50 to 200 units. I prefer to do things at 200 units. So if I have 200 units of something, I'm just going to go ahead and then make a good listing for it, a good enough listing. I don't want to go crazy just yet. And then see if I can do a proof of concept, see if it's moving 2 or 3 every day, or 4 or 5 every day, or 7 or 8 every day, right? If the item is moving slow, like 1 or 2, 3 every day or something like that, maybe I'm just going to let this 200 units finish and then I'm just going to phase this out and then be done with it. Otherwise, if this item is moving quickly, then it totally warrants a reorder. In this business model, you have success retention when this happens. When you are going out and doing all of these one-off items, okay, I'm just going to go as far as say right now, that is the definition of what insanity is, okay? I know a lot of people are going to get real upset for me saying that, but think about this, okay? Really consider what I'm saying. What is the definition of insanity? It is to do the same thing over and over again, expecting this different results, right? So let's inverse that real quick. Imagine if you did different things over and over again and expected consistent results. Doesn't that fall under the same idea of what insanity is? A couple of you guys are seeing the light bulb and you see where I'm going with this, right? So when other gurus specifically tell you all you need to do is go out and get 14 items that flip for $20 profits, and therefore you can get like consistent sales, et cetera, right? But think of exactly what people are doing right now. They make a whole bunch of videos called BOLO lists. What are BOLO lists? They're called Be on the Lookout. Why is it called Be on the Lookout? Because you don't know what you're going to come across when you go out thrifting. So you need to be on the lookout. So if I don't know what I'm going to come across, obviously every single day when I source something and I bring it home, I'm going to have 14 slightly different items, ain't I? So if I'm constantly putting into my account 14 different items, whether good or bad, they're constantly different items, yet I'm expecting consistent sales. That is the definition of insanity. You should be selling the same thing over and over again and then seeing what the rate is and then journaling that down and then making sure that every single day you're doing an average of 5 sales every day, 6 sales every day, 7 sales every day because of the same item. That's how it's supposed to work, right? And that's how organically things work. You have a proof of concept, you tried it out first, this item moves well or it moves slow. And the only way for you to make that happen is if you have a reasonable sample size in order to do that. Not go out every single day and then bring back 14 new items that we're going to go back into the trial and error phase over and over again. So you guys can see that, like, when I go into the critiques and stuff like that, I could go on and on for days, right? So I'm going to do my best to be quiet and just let him speak, okay?
Whether you're selling $1,000 a month or selling $10,000 a month. You have proven that the most common way of reselling really does work. Now it's time to think about how to scale without adding to your workload. In this video, I'm going to introduce 5 different methods of making money in e-commerce that can work alongside what you're doing now. They're not necessarily replacements. You can keep doing what you're doing, but you can add these to work alongside your business so that you can keep increasing your revenue. But before I do that, let me explain how a video like this works for those of you that know for you. In between those sales, I talk about comments and answer questions. We talk to the topic money in e-commerce that can work alongside what you're already doing now, which is one-to-one. You go to a thrift store, you buy one item and you sell one item. Now, how can you expand your business without adding more to your workload? Let's start with method number 1, private label products. This is by far my favorite because I'm already doing this now and I can tell you that it does work.
Okay, so he specifically says that how can you do this item without adding to your workload? I'm going to say right now it absolutely adds to your workload because ultimately a private label item, let me explain exactly the difference between what the label items are, right? There's white, there's private, and then there's custom. And they exist on a spectrum. And the spectrum is how much creative control you have over your item, right? A white label item basically means that it is a generic item that's already being produced by the factory. And all I did was go ahead and slap my name on it. And there you go, white label item, right? So that it comes off as less generic when I sell it. Private label item is kind of like I could change the color, I could add a couple of accessories into it. Maybe I could change the whole packaging around to make it a little bit more, attractive if it's hanging up in stores or something like that. That's what private label is. And then finally, there's custom label. Full creative control over your item, right? The design aspect, the materials, the ergonomics, the functions and the features and stuff. I could control everything in this. So that's what custom label is. But many times often, right, people kind of just use the word private label and custom label interchangeably. So you got to, take that with a grain of salt. So many times if somebody says like, I'm a private labeler, just assume that he has, more, customizability, creative control over his product that as opposed to what a white labeler is. But what a white labeler is specifically just, it's already a done item and all I did was just add my name to it.
And it doesn't add a lot of stress or a lot of workload to your business.
Okay, so I'm going to disagree with that because essentially, in order to be a private labeler, right, you're most likely doing something of your own design. So therefore, in order to have this happen, you have to have some kind of inspiration of an item idea to strike you like lightning, right? So basically, the issue is that if I have to create something on the side, and if I have no ideas, then I'm simply just not going to be doing this idea whatsoever, right? I'm not going to be doing any private label items if I don't have an idea that I want to work with. So how do you get an idea if you don't already have one? Well, you're going to have to do some research on the side, and research would involve, picking out a niche and then starting to, deep dive it from the aspects of the seller, the buyer, the reviewer, as well as the scholar, so that you know exactly how people are positioning this item, what prices they're selling it for, what are the pain points of this item, what are the areas of excellence that this item can excel at if other people were to create it, right? What are the needs of this thing that I could innovate even further that people are looking for through the lens of the reviewer. And then ultimately the lens of the scholar is the idea of understanding the mechanics behind whatever the item it is you're looking for, whether it is construction, how it's made, how it's worked, how it puts together, how people use it, et cetera, et cetera. You need that background knowledge, right? So when you have these 4 things put together, that's what true research is. And when you have that, you're able to spot gaps in the marketplace. You're able to predict market trend shifts and stuff like that. So whenever I see an item and I have a good sense, a good feeling that like, hey, this is a good item that we're going to try, it's because I have the knowledge of these 4 lenses before I jump into this thing. So many times, we just throw out there, you got to do your research or you got to be able to read the market. But the question is, how do you do the research and how do you read the market? And a lot of these guys who are positioning themselves as educators on YouTube have not done specifically stuff like this in order to give you the framework of how to get there. So they'll go ahead and make videos and throw out these suggestions and stuff, but ultimately it remains as very surface level kind of suggestion, chit chat.
There are 2 ways that I recommend you do this. Number 1 is that you can go and reach out to a manufacturer, somebody that makes a product, whatever product you want to look into, electronics, coffee cups, shirts, whatever you want to look into. It doesn't really matter what it is, just research the niche. But whatever you want to do, you go and you buy that product unbranded, and then you put your brand on it.
Yeah, that's white labeling, and then he said it as private label. Maybe he just misspoke there, but this is what I mean, right? He says you go out and then you just find a manufacturer and then you just research that niche. This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Doesn't get into the details of how to find a manufacturer, how to deal with the manufacturer, or how to deep dive a particular niche.
That is the simplest way for you to start a private label product. Somebody already did the work. Somebody already came up with the product.
Yeah,
someone was already building it. Now you just have to buy it, brand it, and sell it. There's also the second way, which is my favorite because
okay, I don't want to leave you guys hanging with nothing. If you were to white label an item, okay, I'll give you the skinny right now of exactly how you see a white label item and if you should do it or not. Here's an excellent example. This is just one of my methods, okay? Let's suppose we see an item that's out there, okay? And I don't know, let's take something off of my desk right now, just like my phone or something, right? No, my phone is a bad example. Just whatever, an item like a remote control, okay? These operate my lights and stuff. Okay, whatever. It's not important what the item is, but let's just say this is version 1 and this is doing pretty well. And you met up with the factory that makes this stuff, and then you see in their catalog that they are releasing version 2. And version 2, you know, comes with extra features and stuff that you just know that people already went crazy over version 1. So if you could get your hands on version 2 the moment that it releases so that you could be one of the first white labelers to do this item, then you could be in a very good position to make some money. That would be a way of spotting a good white label item. You see what I'm saying? But nevertheless, right? Everything can go sideways. You know that there are things out there where version 1 did much better than version 2 and version 2 bombed, right? So that is exactly what the problem is. And this is why on my channel, not only will I teach you exactly how to white label stuff, I will also warn you about what? Proof of concept. If you're going to do something like this, you got to make sure that you order a minimum order quantity first to mitigate your risk, right? So it's not, I'm never going to give you guys advice in a way like, hey, you should do some private labeling, you should do some white labeling, without giving you all the ins and outs of things that you need to look out for, the things that you need to avoid, things you need to, you know what I mean? All the boxes that you need to check first before you get into this stuff. Because just because you're private labeling now doesn't mean you're going to be successful at it, right? How to be successful at it is what you need your mentor to help you with.
I love to do this, and you can build your own product from scratch and then brand it. This right here is my own product. Most of you already know this. This is the Resell Loop. I invented this. I make this here in Texas using global materials. I sell it. I brand it as the Resell Loop, and then I'm selling it now. And if you're wondering what's the best thing about private label, well, let me tell you, private label is awesome because you control the pricing, you have customer loyalty because you're building a brand, and you can scale way faster because you're building one product, you're selling one product, meaning you only have one listing. And
okay, I gotta stop him here, okay? See, for him, he's using his anecdotal story to try to talk about private labeling, right? And you have to have created many products in the past, right? I personally actually have quite a few products that I've created or in the past that I have reviews on by many other reviewers on YouTube. Actually, I just kind of don't want to get into it because I don't want to dig up the past on that. But my point is, okay, that what he has is his channel right now with his followers, right? So he already has a following. So as far as like the brand loyalty and all that stuff, he did that first. And then he offered his Resell Loop, right? If you were to follow in his footsteps and you don't have that brand following first, you don't have that fan base first, then you are starting from scratch, right? And when you do something like that, you know, if you start up a website first and you don't have your following yet, now you have to spend a lot of money on whether it's like, you know, YouTube ads or Facebook ads or Twitter ads and stuff like that. You also have to do a whole bunch of TikToks and YouTubes, you know, things to drive more external traffic over to your website, et cetera, right? As opposed to you go ahead and have some kind of social media following first. So I guess what I'm trying to say, right, is that let's think of somebody like Betty Crocker or Mrs. Fields, right? If Mrs. Fields or Betty Crocker had a cooking show first and they didn't sell anything and they developed their fan base of people who are watching, her cooking show week in and week out. And then she says, hey, I'm going to release Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookies. The people will go nuts. And then you would have a whole bunch of pre-orders immediately. Right. That is the most efficient way to do business because you've already, locked in your customers first. The first rule of doing business is to find your buyer first before you do anything else. I covered this with the whole, somebody constantly spreading the whole platitude, right? Of we make our money when we buy. Right. But the thing is that when you say we make our money when we buy, it has to be the last thing that you do because I've already secured my buyer. So the only thing that I have to do now is go ahead and pick up the product and fulfill the order, right? So when you have proof of concept, you already have your buyer. When you have a fan following and you loyal, subscribers and stuff like that, you already secured some buyers, right? And so therefore the whole business dynamic is 100% different than what he's talking about right now as it applies to you. And that's why I don't think that he's framing this in the right way. When you think about exactly what the Resell loop is, okay, specifically, it's really not for anybody who's other than a reseller, right? Because whatever you want to highlight, it's basically for a reseller. Because if you were to sell a new inbox item and you have multiple quantities of it, whether you made the item yourself or you have ordered the item from a wholesaler or overseas as a white labeler or something like that, if there's something about my item that I'm going to highlight, I'm not going to resolupe that thing. I'm just going to go ahead and make specific infographic photos for this. And then I will highlight and accentuate the things that I want to show that way, professionally, clean, The whole point of the Resolupe is because you are doing these single one-off items and it's not worth your time to take the photos first and then go back into the computer and Photoshop circles and arrows on top of that stuff. So you just get this Resolupe real quick. Or I suppose you can make it out of a paper plate. The Resolupe looks a little bit more professional. And then you just put it on your item and then you take photos, right? But other than people who need to do that, who else is buying this item? So the problem with this item, right, as a good example of what a private label item is, the issue is that where's the organic traffic for this thing? It's not there. In order for an item to have any sort of organic traffic at all, it needs to be both SEO popular as well as SEO friendly, right? So when I type something in, whether it is the function or the trending words, the keywords and stuff, the listing has to be able to pop up because of this. Who's searching for the Resolupe? If you didn't know that it was called the Resolupe and you didn't know Damian, and you don't know this channel and stuff, how do you even find this item? How do you know this thing even exists? So whatever he has sold with this item, it's because he already has a following. It's because he's already promoting it on his channel. He is doing external traffic. This item has no organic traffic whatsoever. And I feel as if you're going to position yourself as an educator and you're going to recommend stuff like this and you're going to use yourself as a case study, right? Then this caveat needs to be put out there for you guys so that you got to see that the way he's doing it and why he's successful is not going to apply to you if you don't have this kind of a following.
And then you're marketing the crap out of it. A well-performing listing can sell tens of units, hundreds of units, thousands of units, or even millions of units. It depends on what it is that you're selling. What you have to do is just make sure that you research the niche, see what competition is out there, and make a good product better or just brand it better and market it better than everybody else.
Right. See, this is what I mean. Very surface level advice, right? He's absolutely right with what he says, but how do you make it better, right? How do you brand it better? How do you improve on things, right? What are the things that you need to think about when it comes to innovation? On my channel, I specifically go through 6 points of different kinds of innovation, whether it is a brand new invention or it's a simplicity thing, it's an aesthetics thing, it is a natural progression type of innovation, you are repositioning this item, or it's basically just a Frankenstein item where you're taking the best of both worlds of two top items and combining it together and then whittling out whatever is unnecessary and creating that whole best bang for the buck type of experience, right? So on my channel, I specifically get more into the dirt, into the nitty gritty of this kind of stuff, rather than just, throw suggestions out into the air.
And because the proof is in the pudding, let me show you what this product has done in sales from when I launched it on December 4th, 2024.
I don't know if this is like the way to use proof is in the pudding.
I made some notes for myself. Since then, I have sold 331 units for a total of $5,032.96. It's been on the market for 5 months. That means it's grossing me about $1,006.59 per month.
Okay, guys, as always, right? I always talk about like careful when people go ahead and throw out those revenue gross numbers and stuff like that. It doesn't mean anything, right? Essentially, you have to think about like, you know, post-tax dollars and stuff and what you get to collect like afterwards, right? After the net profit and then after the whole tax stuff. But aside from that, okay, the idea that he sold 331 over the course of 5 months boils down to a little over 2 units every single day. If you go ahead and then you take 5 and then you divide it into 300, then you get 60, right? So 60 units after 30 days, that's basically 2 units every single day. So 331, that's a little bit over, you know, 2 units every single day that it's selling. So that's why I probably wouldn't have just randomly thrown out like the whole proof is in the pudding kind of thing, especially since the whole Resolute is based on, you know, just him 100% promoting it over to his fan base, his subscribers and stuff like that. Because honestly, who else needs the Resolute? Who else is doing this item? So let me show you what else he has to say first.
Just on this one product alone. Imagine if I had 10 of these products, that would be 10 grand a month on doing the same thing all the time, marketing the same product with just one listing and making sure that everybody and their mom knows about it.
Hallelujah. This is what I've been saying since day one, right? Okay. So what you want to do is try to have a replenishable item. But what's difficult about this thing is that, you know, where do you get the ideas from, right? Where do you get the idea to promote the item? And for him, he has something even more of an advantage because the idea that he came up with actually also needs kind of a following. It needs for him to promote it as well, because you can't really get organic traffic off of this thing because what he's selling is arguably a new invention. Earlier, he was saying that, like, you know, you got to check out the competition. What competition? There's no competition for the Resolute. And that is exactly what the problem is, right? Because it's a brand new invention item. So there's no competition whatsoever. So it's not trending in a keyword kind of way. So it is not SEO friendly. It is not SEO popular. He has to go ahead and make it popular. And that's what you need to consider when he's trying to tell you that, like, hey, you know, I'm a private labeler now and it's great, right? But can you do the exact same thing? If not, you have to promote like exactly what he said. You got to promote the hell out of it. And in order to do that, you're going to put a lot of money into either ads or you're going to spend a lot of time into, you know, starting your own social media or something in order to get more eyeballs on stuff. When you think about ads specifically on all sorts of social media, right? How do people generally feel about stuff? They don't like it, right? I don't like restaurant ads. I don't like, you know, shill videos by foodies and stuff like that. When I'm scrolling through and I just want to see a little bit of the news, I want to see some STEM stuff. I want to see some artistic videos. I'm enjoying myself with like some funny videos and stuff like that. And then suddenly an ad comes out of nowhere. Come on down and, you know, buy my used car or something like that. That upsets me, you know? So the ad needs to be very entertaining in some way so that the algorithm will continue to promote it. So when you see an ad, it has to be either visually stunning or it's hysterical or it's super cute or whatever, so that people will hit the like button and then share this item, right? Because that's the only way you get a lot of views on top of it. And because of all those views, you get to generate some sales. So when it comes to doing this kind of external promotion, traffic, and stuff like that, it's a lot more difficult than you think unless you have a specific following. Now, another thing that I want to point out, right, is that he has specifically been doing reselling for something about 5 or 6 years. At least that's what I get when in one of his videos that he said before, right? So how did he come up with the Resolute? Because he is a reseller himself doing this all the time. So for him to go ahead and be a reseller for 5 or 6 years and then come up finally with the Resolute, that's great. You know what I mean? It's entrepreneurial thinking, and I'm doing this day in, day out. You know, tech and sports the same thing, because tech and sports has that cross ruler thing that he does, right? So he has like basically two yardsticks that he screwed together, and then you just go ahead and then put that on your item, and then it gives you the measurements in one fell swoop, right? And I believe he said he's sold a couple of those as well. This is exactly what, you know, being an entrepreneur and being innovative is all about. You do something over and over again every single day, and then you find solutions, and then maybe you could develop a product based on that solution, right? But the issue is this: it took him 5 years to come up with that inspiration for that idea to bam, hit him like lightning. So how do you just become an inventor? Where do you get your inspirations from? Where do you get your ideas from? Right. That's where it becomes difficult. That's why you need a combination of dealing some wholesale stuff, creating some stuff from home, checking out other niches all the time, doing a lot of studying, filling yourself with more knowledge, all that research stuff, checking out other people's white labeled items, looking through a lot of catalogs, and familiarizing yourself with a lot of the things that's available out there, and then how you can improve on things, right? So you have to start, like, you know, getting better at innovating items. So how do you get better at innovating items? You start trying to innovate items, and then you have to follow a couple of steps of key things that you need to consider when you're trying to innovate something, right? So one of the things that I teach on my channel is about natural progression, and that is one of the best types of innovations that's out there. For example, if you are getting into a brand new industry, right? A good example is this. Before this channel, I used to talk about vaping, right? Because it was just like a hobby and stuff. I quit smoking after 20 years. I've quit smoking for over 10 years now, and I don't even vape anymore. Okay. So it was always a means to an end. But at the time when we were talking about vaping and stuff, it was a brand new industry. And when you think about like other industries that is already existing items, right? For instance, in the jewelry industry, you have jewelry boxes. If in the tool industry, you have tool boxes. And in the fishing industry, you have tackle boxes, right? So it only made sense that you need some kind of organization box type of deal when it comes into a new industry like vaping. So that was one of the products that I went ahead and put together, right? I put together like some kind of tool set. I also put together some kind of like organization set and stuff like that. And those things sold pretty well because, you know, it's a natural progression. If I didn't do it, somebody else is definitely going to do it. And then you just see that, that opportunity in the marketplace because it's a new industry, right? So this is what I'm talking about, like the things that I talk about on my channel, because I have done stuff like this before. So once we get into it, I could tell you the whole backstory of things so that you could take that example and then apply it to your life.
You gotta love private label. Method number 2 is bulk or wholesale lots. What you do is
right. So earlier, the idea of what he was doing with the Resolute, if he gets an idea like this, like once every 5 years, like he said before, what if I have 10 items like doing this stuff? Well, it'll probably take you 50 years to come up with 10 items at that rate, right? I joke. But the thing is that, like, as far as doing collecting, being able to collect more and more, replenishable items is what's key, right? So whatever item that you are doing, okay, whatever niche that you're getting into, after you've done your first item, you probably want to try to do it like a complementary item or something, and then build it up as you go along. But the thing about what I'm critical about this particular video, right, is that he wants you to do this thing kind of as a supplement to what reselling is. So he still doesn't want you to give up reselling, right? And what I'm saying is that, like, look, if you truly believe that being a private labeler or whatever is not going to add that much work on top of you being a reseller, you are 100% mistaken, right? Because to invent an item, especially a brand new item, you got to promote that item. You have to, get it developed, and all that stuff is definitely going to eat into your free time. There's no way, you know what I mean? This doesn't take up any free time whatsoever. That it's just something that takes 10 minutes every single day. There's no way, right? And then on top of this, the way that he puts it is that, like, being a private labeler is awesome. And he just suggested, and he's like, I'm doing it right now. And the proof is in the pudding. You could 100% fail as a private labeler as well if you don't have the proper guidance in order to do it. We saw this specifically with that lady from Amazon, right? Where she bought like those stroller bags and stuff. And then, she dealt with China with a Mr. Wu and whatever. So she went ahead and then she bought all these things and then ended up having so many returns that it basically tanked her business, right? And this is exactly what I'm talking about. You should have started off with a minimum order quantity, put it on all sorts of platforms to see what's going to happen over time. If other people are also abusing and returning this item on other platforms as well. So now maybe it's not the whole customer, maybe it's not the whole, ecosystem of what Amazon is. It's more like people don't like this item, period, right? It's misleading. The listing that you put together is misleading. And that's why you sold a whole bunch, because it does have SEO friendly and SEO popular. It does have demand, but something about your item is a deal breaker. And that's why it gets sent back to you. Had you done a minimum order quantity first for that proof of concept and to make sure that there's no red flags and stuff like that before you went ahead and then just did, 10,000 units from Mr. Wu or something, then you wouldn't be in this mess. And that's what I'm saying, right? You have to have a good mentor to help you along the way so that like you see these kinds of things happen. Mentorship is the shortcuts of life, right? Somebody else has already walked this path, has already done this, and then just tell you like what the roadmap is along the way. Oh, pothole here, up, detour over there. You want to be careful of this and that. Right. That's all it really is.
That you buy a high quantity of one item, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just one item. You can have 10 items or 20 items, but every single item must have a high quantity, and then you must buy it at a low price. What you do now is that you bulk it up in tens in volume of 50 or 100 items and sell it to one customer. What happens here is that it saves you so much time because now you're not looking for 100 or 1,000 customers on eBay or Amazon. You can find one customer that wants to buy the whole lot from you. Yes, you are going to take a hit on margin, meaning you have to charge less than, say, the market wants to bear, because those people are usually going to be resellers, people that sell at the flea market, or collectors. So they expect a deal, but if you buy it low enough, you can be sort of the middleman and make that money super fast. Because again, you're not looking for 100 people to sell it to. All you need is 1, 2, or 3 people, and they buy the whole lot from you.
Okay, so that piece of advice, in my opinion, is coming from someone who hasn't done this too many times, all right? And that's why you would think that. And that's not the reality of how any of this works, okay? So I'm going to give you a real backstory of an item that I did specifically on my eBay account. So I wanted to try one item that I thought was just a dummy item, basically, look, I think anybody can sell it and there's nothing to really know about it. There's nothing to really research about it. So the item that I did was something called hookless shower curtains, right? I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it is a single piece shower curtain that basically can just press into the shower rod. You don't need extra hooks or anything like that. So you don't need any accessories. It's a really cheap item and it's really good for dorm rooms and motel rooms. Just whoever the landlord is or whoever, is doing this and they just don't want to spend a lot of money. Okay. So for this item, for each shower curtain that I purchased, okay, the before inland price is something like $1.75, and then after inland I think I paid $2.25 each, right? And I sold this thing at $15.50 because I already saw that the competition was selling it at like $17, $16 and stuff like that. So I came in at $50 and I just beat everybody up because nobody's price is lower than mine. I personally bought about 600 units of this stuff, and I got this in with the slowest way possible by super slow boat. Okay, that thing took me something like 35 days to receive from China over to Long Beach. Okay, so the thing is that like I wanted to keep the cost very low because I'm just trying to be competitive and let me see what I could do. Right, I got 600 units. If I go ahead and then move 200 units very quickly, then I still have 400 units to make like, lead times and delivery times before I need to reorder this item again, right? Okay, so basically 600 units was my minimum order quantity that I wanted to try with, okay? And when I sold this thing, I just went ahead and then do my best to do a very decent listing, right? We put the proper keywords and stuff, do a little bit of a light HTML for it so that it's not exactly A plus content, but it's still very mobile friendly of a listing, right? And then on top of this, we also did a couple of pretty solid photos, not personal photos and stuff, photos that the factory provided, and then use some of their angles and stuff to create a couple of infographic photos as well. So we had something like 6 solid photos to put together into a whole listing to work on, right? And basically what happens is that if you buy one, then it's going to be 50 and 50. And if you buy two, there's a certain percentage discount, 3 and 4, okay? And ultimately, if somebody wanted to buy, 16 pieces from me, 200 pieces from me, they could go ahead and do that because the quantity on this item is set at 600. So as long as they're not buying more than 600, I could totally fulfill the order. And if they buy more, then they get more of a discount and it's all set up there. I don't have to go ahead and create a listing where it's a lot item, you know what I mean? So that basically, let's say if I have 200 units of something, then I have a listing that is a 10-piece lot and then a 15-piece lot or whatever. Instead, whatever you want to buy, whether it's 1 piece or 200 pieces, you could do that all on the exact same listing, whatever quantity that you want to do, all right? And the best part about that is that all the sales converge on the exact same listing, which is what you want to do, is how you want to operate eBay at a high replenishable item level, right? So that like all the metadata is all in one place. You don't want to split that up between like, other listings and stuff. So you have like a whole bunch of low ranking listing as opposed to just one high ranking listing of your shower curtain, right? So the thing about this shower curtain is that ultimately I did have a guy, I'm just going to out him right now, right? He is called Osceola Supply. You guys can look it up. They're in Florida and they sell like, cleaning supplies and all sorts of stuff. And I think all the cleaning supplies that they do is they probably supply for like, anything like hospitals or hotels or something like that. I could just tell by the stuff that they carry, right? And the guy who purchased from me, I'm not going to say his last name, but his name is Dan. And I ended up writing him an email because the first order that he placed with me was 150 units. So after he placed that with me, I was just like, I could make even more money offline. So let me see if I could email him, try to get his phone number, and then take the sale offline. You're not supposed to take the sale offline, but if we're going to work out like these huge bulk deals and stuff like that, then it's totally worth the risk to do so. Anyways, the point is that he is like the operations manager, head of purchasing or whatever for Osceola Supply, and then he purchased 150 units from me, and it lowered the price on my discount or whatever, right, to about like $12 or $12.50 or something like that. Okay, I'm gonna tell you this right now. If I was the boss of Osceola Supply, Dan is fired. I'll tell you that right now, okay? Dan is absolutely fired because you are so lazy, all right? You didn't contact, there was nothing else that you could do other than try to buy wholesale off of eBay at 100, He actually even came back and bought from me again, even though I tried to speak to him directly on the phone. I did get him on the horn and we did, I did offer him, right, that like, look, if you want this stuff, right, I could, order you pretty much anything that you want. It comes straight from China. It'll be on a pallet. If you want, 1,000 units or whatever, I can have that all wrapped up for you, right, shrink wrapped and stuff, and sent straight to your door, to your warehouse, right? And I could come down as far as something like $8 per unit landed. You know what I mean? I have great connections in order to do stuff like that. And as I said before, my landed cost for myself for an LTL shipment is like, $225 a piece. So for me to do like, a whole pallet, like, straight to his door or whatever, it's real simple. You know what I mean? I'd probably make even more money off of that. And the whole idea is making money over time, right? That one sale of like 1,000 units or 500 units or whatever. So of course you're going to give people a huge discount on that stuff. But the thing is that you wouldn't do it the way that Damian is saying, right? You wouldn't do it that way. If you were to do it, you would just go ahead and make your listing and go ahead and then put up your 600 units, 500 units, 100 units, whatever you have, and whatever people come across, right, and they want to buy your item, they will probably email you directly if you have more or whatever, or see the discounts that you set up if you buy 4 or more, et cetera, right? You don't have to do like this whole lot thing. But ultimately, when he said the whole, if you could buy it cheap enough, right? Basically, you cannot buy it cheap enough unless it comes from overseas and you get it here by slow boat. Otherwise, there's no way you're dropping a $15 item down to under $3.
And let me give you a very cool, very new school, and very in way to do this. Most of you know live selling. For example, Whatnot. When I've gotten on Whatnot, I've seen people sell things for $1, $2, $3, on average $5, for example. And the only way that that makes sense is that if they're buying in bulk, either they're going to the bins and buying by the pound, or they're buying pallets. However they're buying it, the only way that you can make money that way when selling that low is that if you're buying in bulk. And that's so cool. You can do that for sure. You can buy, say, a bundle of clothing, what they call a paca, which is a big ass, just compressed pack of clothing. Usually you can get them for about $500 for something that is about 100 pounds of clothing. You open it up, you start piecing it out, and then you get on Whatnot. And you're like, you know what? Let's go. So you're getting so many items on there that it makes sense for you to make $3 or $4 or $5. And if you can sell everything, say within 2 or 3 days, you turn your $500 investment to $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, whatever you can get out of it. But the point is that you can do it, and you can do it quickly.
Okay, so the thing about this, right, with the whole pallets and stuff, okay, you guys are my witness, okay? You guys confirmed this for me because I don't do this kind of stuff. And you guys have said, right, don't buy these pallets, right? Many of you guys have tried these pallets and you did not get your money back on this. And a lot of people have been saying, right, that the problem with these pallets is that they have already been picked through. When you think of like, those liquidation bin places and stuff, right? There's a reason why, I'm just making stuff up right now. Like Tuesdays is $7 an item, and then Fridays is $5 an item, and then Sundays is because they don't replenish until Monday, right? So the bin has already been picked through. So if you're going to show up on Sunday, like all the items are like just $1 or $2, but they've been picked through really, really bad. While when it's fully first replenished and stuff like that, the bin might go for $10 an item, because you get to cherry pick the best things. So the problem with a lot of these bins, with what he said with buying, 100 pounds worth of stuff, right, is that, it could be already picked through. So you could get stuck with a lot of these things. So this is not something you really want to do. And as far as Whatnot, isn't Whatnot the whole, like, we do the live show and stuff? Can you imagine how efficient it already is to do a listing just to sell something once, and let alone do a live show to sell a whole bunch of one-off items, right? I don't think that Whatnot is something that you need to spend your personal time on, especially how he said over here that these are reseller growth hacks that's not going to eat more into your time that you could do on the side. This will absolutely eat into more time because you have to, consider what are the items that you're going to do for your show today. You have to set up your schedule and all that other stuff, right? That's exactly what Whatnot is that live show thing. So I think if anybody is doing it correctly, okay, as far as the Whatnot stuff, it would be Daily Refinement. Okay, Chris Lynn is doing it correctly. And how is he doing it? He's not doing the Whatnot. He has employees that does the Whatnot stuff, right? They use their time, talking to the customers, getting on camera, etc., while he gets to be the boss and does other things. So I was always very critical of, Daily Refinement, specifically because he romanticizes and sensationalizes what reselling is, while all the while you could tell that he's not just a reseller, right? And that's why I've been critical of him for so long. But as far as, just being a reseller and stuff like that, then, basically anybody could teach you to be a reseller because, like we said in the beginning of this video, right? There's only 4 steps to reselling, right? Sourcing, processing, listing, and finally, packing and shipping. As far as, signing up for eBay and stuff, eBay is supposed to be a website where anybody just go on and sign up themselves, right? You really don't need a video of anybody holding your hand of like, how to register for eBay and stuff. It's supposed to be intuitive. It's supposed to be like step by step, put in your information, put in your bank information, et cetera, and now you have a store and stuff. So you might have some other side questions, but they're all very easy to answer for anybody who has done reselling for like, even 6 months. They could pretty much answer your questions.
The third method is subscription boxes or mystery boxes. And let me give you a quick disclaimer for those of you that are going to want to go and try this real quick on eBay or Amazon. You can't do that according to the fine print. You're not supposed to be doing mystery boxes. What I recommend is that you open your own site. For example, Shopify or Wix. I personally use Wix when I've opened sites. I've used Wix.com, but you can do whatever you want. Just open your own site.
This is going to be so rough. I can't believe he recommended this. Okay. So the thing is this, right? Many of you guys have gotten burned on the whole mystery boxes. So for him to recommend that you do mystery boxes is basically you burning other people, right? Because what happens in this mystery box, you guys already know. You're going to get a whole bunch of things that you don't want, that person, whoever packed those mystery boxes, right, is already loading that stuff up with a whole bunch of things that they don't want, right? We actually even had a subscriber who specifically said that he bought a mystery box once, right, specifically from Daily Refinement, and out of the 10 items that was in there, 3 of them were hand soaps. Okay. Anyways, I don't know if that's true. This is just what I read in the comments. But the point is, right, that it is items that's already been picked through. It is items that they were unable to sell. And then they're just going to go ahead and calculate whatever the retail price is and then sell it to you for whatever price that, you know, they could either recoup their losses on or even make a couple of bucks on, right? And now what he's telling you to do is the exact same thing to other people. So if you ever bought a mystery box and thought this was, you know, bad business practice, then, you know, you take your own advice, right? Don't do it to other people either.
So what does this mean? For example, if you open a subscription box or a subscription package, that means that somebody's going to pay you a flat fee a month, let's say $20 a month for selling hats. Every month you get to send them 3 hats. They keep what they want, they send back what they don't want, and then you agree to $20. You get to send them the hats, whatever they didn't want, put them in somebody else's box and keep going from there.
Okay, so what is a subscription box, right? Like a battle box, sweet box, and stuff like that. It doesn't matter how many subscribers that you have. This business is very difficult to do. And again, as he said in the beginning of this video, right? This is like other things that you're supposed to supplement on top of your reseller business. That's not supposed to take much time. This thing probably takes even more time than doing what reselling is, because you need a good supplier and supply of different items that are all in the same category, genre, niche type of thing, right? When you think about exactly what is inside of a battle box, when you think of exactly what is inside of a sweet box with, like, you know, the what is in for, again, like mascara, you know, a lip liner, you know, lipstick or lip gloss or something like that. And basically it's for people who have the disposable income to sign up for this subscription for a little while and then basically receive a gift to themselves every single month, right? Now, another thing is that it's been very controversial with the whole subscription thing, because if you ever signed up for a subscription service, right, you see that they make you kind of sort of take a survey to get to know, like, you know, what your preferences are, whether it's food or coffee. Like, I don't like orange and citrusy things, or I don't like the color green or purple. Like, I don't want, you know, if it's like a clothing subscription. And then many people have ended up complaining that, you know, I joined this thing along with my friend, and even though we have confirmed with each other that we filled out the questionnaire completely differently every single month, we are receiving pretty much the exact same box anyways, right? So the whole subscription service is a lot more difficult than what people think it is, especially when people sign up for a subscription where there's, like, you know, 5 or 6 items in there, right? And you're supposed to go ahead and load up these boxes according to people's preferences and stuff. So I would say this whole business is a lot more difficult to do than what people think. And again, if you have a fan following, maybe you could do some of this stuff, maybe get, like, you know, 50 or 150 people to do something like this. But if you didn't, again, this is something where you have to create your own following, right? You have to promote a lot into it. You have to start doing, you know, viral TikToks, et cetera, you know, Instagrams and things like that before you even get into this business, or you're not going to be able to drive any traffic to your business. Everything that requires you to drive traffic to your own business, like having your own website and stuff, I highly recommend that you have some sort of following first, so that you follow the first rule of business, which is to acquire your buyer first. That way you're not sitting on a whole bunch of product trying to sell it. You get the difficult part, you get the selling out of the way first, so that all you have to do is worry about the fulfilling part.
The best thing about this is that you have recurring income you already know what's coming in, so you can invest that money into next month's product and you can keep moving forward. So it's a lot easier for you to understand how much money is coming into your business, because now you're not waiting for a sale every single day. As long as you have a customer, you already know you have 20 bucks. If you have 10 customers, you already know you have $200 that month. So you keep gaining steam by gaining more and more subscribers.
He's technically not wrong, but the way that he's talking about this stuff is somebody who hasn't done something like this before. You know how some people say stuff like, look, there's 300 million, Americans in this country, right? And if everybody gave you $1, you have $300 million. Well, there's, also like a little over 7 billion people on the planet, and if they all gave you $1, you have 7 billion, right? The issue is creating the sale and making the sale is very, very difficult, because most people are under what? First person spending. And what does that mean? When you are first person spending, you are very careful. You are very frugal with your money. So when you come across deals and stuff like that, the perception of value, right, has to be greater, equal or greater to whatever the asking price is. So when I see something and then they tell me it's $100 for this item, I could either think, no way, or I'm like, wow, that's a great deal, because I know this thing goes for at least $250. And if I could buy it for $100, that is a steal. So I'm happy to give my money away in order to acquire this item. So for you to make the sale under those kind of premises, right, where I have to create that kind of value, I have to at least create that kind of perception of value. This is exactly why, when big brands and stuff, like Balenciaga or whatever, they need to get so many celebrities to help promote their items, right? I see, Kim Kardashian is wearing this and that or whatever to hype up the item. And that's where its value comes from. Because ultimately, whatever it is, the boots or the sweater or whatever, we know it doesn't cost that much to manufacture. But how can you sell it for that high? Because I have to find a way to increase the perception of the value somehow, at least, right? Either it actually is worth that much. It really is, the cost of materials, et cetera, is worth that much and everybody knows it. Or there is a perception of high value on this, so people are willing to part with their money in order to pay you a premium for your item. So this is a whole bunch of caveats that is within all of these 5 reseller growth hacks and stuff like that that he's not mentioning. And I feel as if, like, had you been somebody with a lot more business acumen, you would throw in all of these caveats, all of these check mark boxes that you need to meet first in order to make this happen. You don't just throw out these things like, hey, all you got to do is like, private labeling. That's a great idea. And then, doing subscription boxes. That's a great idea. Yeah. How do you make those things successful? Because those things can bomb as well, right? Let's be honest. Business goes either way. How do we make it successful is what we should be really focused on.
Mystery boxes work a little different. Let's say you have wholesale or bulk sale lots, or you have extra that you want to get rid of. You can do a mystery box. You can say, I can guarantee that there is $100 minimum of value in here according to eBay or according to market value.
I can't believe he's giving this advice right now. If you have extra trash that you want to get rid of, right? Well, why did he use the S word for those things? Because that's what they are, right? Like, I can't sell that stuff. So let me pack it up into a box and then tell people that it's $100 value or whatever. Honestly, anything that is not on the shelf, right, is worth $0. And anything that is not moving is also worth $0, because ultimately money is what we dictate it is, right? If I have an apple and you have $1 and I tell you it's $1 for this apple and we trade, then it was $1 for that apple. If I tell you 50 cents, then it was 50 cents, right? As long as we both agree to it. If I told you that apple was $5 and you were desperate enough to get it, right, and you gave me $5, then that apple was just $5, right? Money is what we say it is. So when you have stuff on the shelf and nobody wants it and a year has gone by, it's pretty much worth nothing because nobody is willing to trade you for it. And that's the way that you have to see it. So to later on put it into the box and then say there's $100 worth of value here. No, money is actually what we say it is. And that's what I want to teach you guys on this channel so that you don't fall into these kinds of pit traps, because that's what normal people would think. But we're trying to run a business here, so we think more business-like
at the time, and then you get to sell it. So people start bidding on it, or they can say, or you can say something like, every box has a minimum of $100 and I'm selling it for $40.
You know what? I think you guys agree with me, right? You would much rather sell an item that people are very happy with you. You know, let's just say like you sold phone cases and stuff, right? And then people wrote you back, they're like, I love my new phone case. It is wonderful. I could use it as a stand. Sometimes I leave it on my table so that I could see the time and stuff. I dropped it off of a two flights of stairs or whatever, and it totally protected my phone. Thank you so much for creating this wonderful item. Like everybody feels warm and fuzzy inside, right? You don't want to sell stuff like this where people come back and say, you know, they feel robbed or cheated or whatever. And exactly as he described, right? It's a whole bunch of the S word that you didn't want, that you couldn't get rid of yourself, and now you're pushing it off to somebody else.
So they pay you $40, you send them the box, and they get to resell it like that. The fourth method is called print on demand. I personally do this myself. If you go to
print on demand right now, I'll just let him talk, right? But like immediately, you already know you need a following in order to do print on demand, right? When it comes to selling designs and t-shirts and stuff like that, who sells the most t-shirts? I would say rock bands, Taylor Swift, you know what I mean? WWE, they sell like the most t-shirts because they have a huge fan following, right? Especially when you think about like all of the political channels and stuff, they have like, you know, millions of subscribers, and they go ahead and they use things like Teespring and Shopify for this, even to the point where you could kind of buy their t-shirts on a link right below their videos sometimes, right? So you need to have a following, you need to have a fan base in order to sell this stuff. Otherwise, you have to go ahead and create those very, very viral types of videos, right? Because only the very, very viral types of videos where it's like, it's super cool or super cute or super funny or super, you know, aesthetically jaw-dropping or something like that, that people will share this item and the algorithm will keep running this ad. Will you get enough views so that like people will go ahead and, you know, you're going to catch a couple of, catch a couple of bees with this kind of honey, you know what I mean? And then you're going to get a couple of sales based on how viral it is. So when you think about exactly how that's supposed to work, right? How many people are buying the stuff of these creators and whatever, right? Let's suppose if you had like 1 million followers, right? What is the actual answer of people who buy your merch? It would be anywhere between 0.5% to 2% tops. That's the actual number, all right? So if you don't have a huge fan following or whatever, this is not going to happen for you.
On my YouTube channel and you click on the store, you'll see branded items like shirts, hats, and etc. So what you do is that you make artwork, you draw something.
But that's the caveat, right? They're branded items. So what do you need? You need to have a brand. So if people don't know your brand and never heard of you, is it really even a brand?
You have somebody draw it, whatever the case, you have AI draw it if you want. You upload it on something like Teespring, and then it makes the product for you. It just shows you the JPEGs or the PNG files, meaning files that are downloadable that somebody else can see.
The way he's going on about this, right? You would think that he works for Teespring more than he's looking out for your best interest on this, okay? Because the issue is that Teespring and Shopify, they make it so that like you think that they do all the heavy lifting, right? That all you have to do is make the design and then go ahead and then put it online and stuff like that. And we'll do all of the heavy lifting. You know what I mean? I'll print it for you. I'll ship it for you. And then, you know, we'll split the money with you, et cetera, all that good stuff, right? When in actuality, when you think of what a business is, right? Who is more valued in the business, okay? The marketing team or the finance team, the finance accounting team? Who's more important? They are both equally as important, okay? Because the finance and marketing will prevent you from losing a lot of money as long as they move your money correctly, right? And then they file your taxes and everything in a way that can protect you from losing a lot of money. But The marketing team is who helps you earn money, right? So if I don't earn a whole bunch of money, I don't have money to protect. So there's always going to be more favoritism towards the marketing team. And the reason why I bring up this example is because ultimately, never forget that earning the sale is the heavy lifting, is all the footwork. Okay. Earning the sale is what's most important first. Making that sale happen, making somebody open their wallet to you is always going to be the most difficult part of doing sales, period. So don't let anybody ever tell you that, yeah, we'll make the product for you and whatever. Fulfilling the order afterwards is always the easy part. You know why? Because if Teespring won't do it, then Printify will do it. And if Printify won't do it, then you'll go ahead and find a Chinese company overseas to do it. Somebody is willing to do it. All you need to have is the sale, and that is always the most difficult part. So don't let this kind of spiel, right, make you think otherwise, that like, oh, all you have to do, that actually getting the sale is very, very difficult.
Once you start pitching it to the customers, once you start marketing, somebody's going to say, oh, I love that shirt. It's so cute. I saw it on Instagram, whatever the case. You give them a link. They go and purchase it from there. So they go and purchase it directly from Teespring. That means that you're not investing up front. You're not putting any money up front. The way that it works is that once the customer buys it, Teespring gets the order.
The issue is that why would somebody see it on your Instagram? Who are you? Right? Just because you put it on Instagram, it's just going to go ahead and get 5 million views? No, right? It has to be done in a way. You have to be a marketing genius in a way. You have to have a very, very, cute girl doing something really cute, or a cat, or something that people will want to share this item. And also recognize that this is also a commercial at the same time, because commercials upset people when they are doom scrolling and trying to enjoy their time, right? So this is why Tony from LC Sign does so well, right? Because he makes you laugh out loud first, and then he gets into his, I'm selling this neon sign kind of spiel. And then people leave comments like, that was so funny. I don't even need a sign, but the day that I need one, I'm going to LC Sign, right? Exactly. That's how stuff like that needs to happen. So if you don't have some kind of shtick, some kind of way to, go viral and stuff like that, this business becomes very, very difficult to do. As he said before, these are branded items. Do you even have a brand to do branded items? When you think about exactly like all these designs on the t-shirts and stuff like that, they're not SEO friendly, and they're not SEO popular either. Exactly what are you supposed to title your listing of your cool design? Real cool design t-shirt? Like what are you supposed to put in? It's going to be lost in a sea of a whole bunch of other titles. So you need to be able to promote it externally in some way. What is your ability to promote things externally? You're just going to go ahead and start an Instagram account and a TikTok account, and then, just be an overnight sensation because you willed it to happen. That is the caveat and the boxes that you need to check first before you can make something like this happen.
They make it, they ship it to the customer, and you get a commission basically out of it. So you get a portion of that sale because you are the one that's pushing that product. Yes, it's your artwork, but they are doing all the legwork. They are allowing you to use their site so you can put it on there, your artwork.
Right. This is exactly why, as a reseller, you guys already know, if it's a Carhartt jacket, I'm going to pick it up. If it's Rock Revival jeans, I'm going to pick it up, because people are specifically searching for Rock Revival jeans. People are specifically searching for Carhartt jackets. You know that Patagonia stuff is, certain models and stuff is definitely going to sell. This is exactly what happens in, everybody's like Bolo listings and stuff like that, right? But when it comes to, your own branded things, where it goes to zero in popularity, because who are you? Why would this thing sell at all? Why would it have any views at all? Who's searching for this stuff? Nobody, right? You have to create that traffic. And that's basically, the things that he offered in all of these, right? Whether it was the private label item, or, the boxes, or to do your own website, or to do this Printify, whatever. All of these suggestions require some kind of a following, require some ability to drive external traffic. Damian has this ability because he has this channel, but you guys don't. And that's why I don't think this advice is applicable to you guys in the way that is applicable to him. I hope that's fair.
They're allowing you to use their manufacturer so they can make whatever prints you want, and they ship it themselves to the customer. They take a
So
very
what?
big part of the sale, of course, because they're doing most of the work, but you get a commission.
See, that's exactly the key word right there, right? They're doing most of the work. No, guys, you are doing most of the work. If you can bring the sales, you're doing most of the work, right? You know, as much as we want to say that like the concert venue all put together and stuff like that in order to go see Taylor Swift live or whatever, pretty sure Taylor Swift is doing most of the work. She's the one selling out all of the tickets, right? It's not Ticketmaster. It's not like, you know, people at the box offices and stuff like that. It's not people who are putting out the folding chairs or selling the sodas and stuff compared to what's getting people in the door to begin with in order to spend all of that money. You're not going to sell any of that popcorn, hot dogs, sodas, or whatever if Taylor Swift isn't there. You know what I mean? Why would I show up to the event at all? So never put getting the sale last. Always put getting the sale, acquiring the sale is first on the list every single time. That is the heavy lifting. That is the groundwork. That's what deserves all of the credit. Nearly all of the credit first. The idea of how to get people to spend money is the heaviest thing that you should be prioritizing, because everything else of how we correct stuff, how we provide excellent customer service, et cetera, can all be, you know, fixed later on, right? It could all be improved on later on. The difficulty is acquiring the customer first. There's no customer service to service if you don't have the customer. You know what I mean?
And trust me, this does work. There's people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, doing their own thing. Last but not least, method number 5, digital products. I love this one because it requires a lot less of your money up front. So what you're doing is that you are going to invest a lot of time because you got to make good products, meaning you put information down in a product in a PDF file.
Right. So here he admits you're going to have to invest a lot of your time. And again, the premise of this video is that you could do this, you know, supplemented like with your reselling business, like at the same time, because it's not supposed to take that much time, right? You could just go ahead and do it. I forgot exactly how he put it in the beginning, but you guys remember, right? He was saying, hey, I'm going to show you 5 things that you could just, you know, go ahead and do. And it's not going to, you know, he didn't specifically say that it's not going to be a time vacuum, but ultimately everything that he put together, it's actually going to be, you know, taking up a lot of your free time.
Maybe you'll make it look real nice with artwork, however you want to build it out, but you have to look for a niche. For example, I would sell something to resellers. I could sell templates. I can sell my ChatGPT bot, which somebody already asked me. Actually, a few people asked me.
Right. Why would anybody buy your ChatGPT bot, right? Damian has a following and he talks about his ChatGPT bot. And he's demonstrated it, and then people, you know, buy into that, and then they're like, hey, you know, well, how much for your bot, right? And if he's going to offer a fair price, then, you know, maybe he's going to sell a couple. But why would somebody buy yours? Who are you? That's exactly what the issue is. So if you were to go ahead and then, you know, do some kind of template or a ChatGPT bot or something like that, and then put it on, you know, digital downloadable websites, or there's a lot of digital downloadable things on Etsy as well, right? Like, why would anybody buy this? Why would anybody search for yours? Why would you get any eyeballs whatsoever? Again, you have to promote this thing, right? So what's your ability to promote this stuff?
I can sell whatever I want. You would be able to sell to anybody. For example, if you used to sell vehicles, used to sell cars.
It's very difficult when you're saying you would be able to sell to anybody, right? I mean, technically, you can go ahead and start up an account and then put up a digital download and it's there and you're doing it, right? But are you really doing it? If you're not getting any eyeballs and you're not getting any sales or whatever, are you really doing it? Right? Because ultimately, we have to make the sale. Then we could say, yeah, we have a business going on. Otherwise, we have a setup going on, but without sales, it's not really a business.
You can give all your tips and tricks and sell it for 99 cents to $10 to $100, depending on what you think your information is of value to somebody else.
You know, earlier he said, right, one of his favorite things about being a private labeler and stuff is that he gets to set his own prices. And I want to bring that up real quick. Okay. Is it really? Okay. Because ultimately in business, right, what is it that you want? What is it that you really want to do? You don't really have a choice, because nobody has ever bought back a second of time, right? So time is always working against you. So what is it that you're looking for as far as setting your prices? You want the best volume to profit ratio every single time. So if you go ahead and then, I could get to set my own prices. So I set it at $50, nobody's buying it. Right, exactly. Because profit to volume ratio is very, very important. So number one, I got to make sure that I have very good margins. And then I want to start tweaking my price so that like I'm making the most money over time, right? Because there's going to be times where you are making more money at $14 than if you were selling it at $16 or $18 because of the volume, right? So there was a time where I was selling my car seat covers and I sold it at $50 in the beginning, right? And this was a huge mistake that my dad told me as a piece of advice. He was like, listen, nobody has your specific model of seat covers, so you don't have to sell it for that low. You could sell it a little bit higher. So guess what? I went ahead and moved it from $50 over to $60 based on that advice. You know how many I sold for the month? 2. I went from selling 7 every day to 2 for the month, and one of them got returned. That's how mad I was afterwards, right? So then I lowered it to $55. And again, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I didn't sell a single copy. When I went down to about $49.99, okay, which is back to the $50 that I originally was at, the sales started flowing properly again. And you know what? Again, nobody ever bought back a second of time. So for that whole month and a half that I was trying out my dad's advice, that was the worst piece of advice I've ever heard. You know what I mean? Actually, I was fine, but ultimately it still taught me a lesson, right? That ultimately, whether you raise the price, you shrink the price or whatever, you're still looking for the best profit to volume ratio. So if that is the case, right, that if we were making more money selling it at $14 as opposed to $16, then we need to sell it at $14 because when we have a replenishable item, we're not worried about having enough to sell, right? We just have to make sure that we are ordering, accordingly to our sales rate, right? To our conversion rate. So if you lower the price even further to $12, are we going to do way more volume than $14? And if the answer is no, you're not seeing a significant difference at all, then you need to go back to $14 and you have found your sweet spot, right? So in this scenario that I just put together about finding the best volume to price ratio, I ask you again now, right? Do you really get to dictate your prices? When you take a item exactly, what his creation is with the whole like Resolute or whatever, right? It is a 3D printed item, is just a piece of plastic, right? How much can he sell it to you for? $100? No, absolutely not. Nobody's going to pay you $100 for, a couple of pieces of plastic, right? So he has to sell it for a fair price, and therefore he needs to go find exactly what the sweet spot is, right? If he sells it way too cheap, then he's probably losing money. If he sells it too expensive, he's probably still losing money because you're not gaining enough volume on the traffic, right? So ultimately, everybody needs to find exactly where the sweet spot is, find exactly what the best volume to profit ratio is. And when you're doing something like that, which is the correct thing to do, are you really dictating your own price? Not really.
Maybe you're a realtor. How do you better sell to people that want to buy homes? Whatever the niche is, you can build that out into digital products. You open your own website and you can sell it from there. That is one of the best ways for you to make money because nobody can really be you. Nobody can get what's in here. So if you know how to put it together to where it's easily digestible and it works, you can make good money.
Again, right? He basically just described putting together an ebook, and you could just go ahead and put that on Amazon or something. And plenty of people have done that. But again, right, you have to market that stuff. So do you have a following in order to do so? If we're going to specifically take the whole, real estate route, right? I bet you somebody like Barbara Corcoran, if she released an ebook downloadable on Amazon, as well as a well narrated, audio book and stuff, right? She'd probably sell a lot of copies. Why? Because she's Barbara Corcoran. That's why she's a real estate mogul, right? And the real estate mogul is giving real estate advice. So people are going to buy something like that. But if you're not Barbara Corcoran, why buy yours? You're not the first person to put up like, a real estate book, right? a lot of things have already been done under the sun. Why would somebody choose yours over somebody else? You need to create that. So when you talk about brand loyalty or whatever, do you even have that first? You can't just, I'm going to go ahead and then put up a digital download stuff and then just base it off of wishful thinking, right? Just because you can do something. But because you can do something, are you actually doing it? Because if there's no sales, does that even count?
And those are the 5 methods that you can use to work alongside your business that you're doing now, which is reselling. Buy one, sell one. If you do any of these or all of these together, imagine the possibilities. Imagine how much more money you can make. For example,
So here's the thing, right? For him to say something like that, right now he's like all giddy that like he is doing, his resell loop and stuff. And now he's a private labeler. And if you have 10 items doing something like that, look, imagine, right? If you have one item that is doing like 3 units every single day, and now you have 10 items doing that, now you have guaranteed about an average of 30 sales every single day, right? And that will make you a decent income. Right. That's exactly what I've been talking about on my website, not on my website, on this channel the whole time, right? There are better ways to do stuff because once you have developed this item and you've laid down the foundation, now you have that full plumbing system, right? I get water directly from the lake pumped into my home. This is the pipeline that I'm talking about, but it's very difficult to build that type pipeline, right? And this is why, on my channel, I specifically talk about how we're going to do this from beginning to end, how we do like these A to Z roadmaps and stuff like that. You can't just go ahead and then tell people, this is the same thing, right? Hey, you want to make a lot of money? Just be a doctor, just be an engineer, be a CEO. Yeah. How do you get there? You know what I mean? And then we just never talk about that stuff, right? You want to make $1 billion? All you have to do is like, make a really good phone app and then sell it to Apple. Like, well, what are you talking about, dude? We have to have real actionable steps. If you're, constantly saying Resellutions gives you real solutions, right? But then we never get into the nitty gritty of exactly how to do these things, then this is why I critique the way that I do, okay? At the end of the day, it's nothing personal. I am constantly comparing strategy to strategy, advice to advice, okay? If people take it personally or whatever, then, that's on them. Ultimately, a lot of the pushback that I get is more close to, it's not what you said, it's more of the way you said it, right? And I'm going to show you guys that right here. So there's a comment specifically on this video, and it's even about me. Now, this is somebody who's actually, a subscriber of ours, and he says, uh-oh, I hope Peg is happy and not upset. I'm not upset at all because this is a step in the right direction, because what Damian has done in this video, even though the advice is very surface level and it's missing a lot of things in it, right? But it's still in a step in the right direction, and it 100% confirms what I have been saying the whole time. So he says he's been a brainworm of mine since I first watched him. Because ultimately, if there's something that I said that you disagree with, then quote me on what I said, push back on it, and we'll have an actual discussion, right? Most of the pushback that I get is the weirdest kind of pushback where people say, well, maybe some people don't want to make a lot of money. Well, okay, if you don't want to make a lot of money with that mentality, don't worry about it. You won't, right? Because ultimately our worldviews and our opinions and our feelings is going to dictate our actions. So if you don't feel like making a lot of money, you're definitely, not going to fall victim to making a lot of money. Okay, so I wouldn't worry about it. So he says over here, I missed out. If you responded to his video on you, when you rolled out your resell loop, I definitely thought of the connection between what he preaches, and rightly so, and your private label item. One of the best installments yet. Stay frosty, stay strong, bro. Okay. Right. So then he replies over here, okay? Some people think they are so special that they believe they are the only ones doing it differently. No, I'm trying to encourage everybody to do it differently, okay? I'm not saying I'm the only one doing this. What I'm trying to point out is that people like me absolutely exist in the eBay space, right? But we're not represented on YouTube because people who do what I do don't have to just sell on eBay. They are more of multi-platform sellers, right? Most of my money is, on Amazon and other things. I only do some of the eBay stuff, especially I use eBay as for my experimental items. I definitely use eBay as my you know what we said before with the proof of concept area, right? So every time I get a minimum order quantity or whatever, I throw it on eBay first. You know why? Because on eBay, the promoted listings, right, I could totally control exactly what the cost is going to be because it's pay when you sell, as opposed to doing on Amazon, right? You have to do a PPC campaign and you could rack up the bill immediately and not even make that many sales, right? And you kind of have to at the beginning, because if you don't put a lot of your what is it, the budgets at like $100 a day or whatever, you're not looking for maximum results, because you need meaningful information in order to do the business, right? Because you know, an item could be successful in one person's hands and a dud in another person's hands, because execution is very important when you have an item, right? Just because an item does have like some demand and stuff like that, and it could have been a star, but in somebody else's hand, it was poorly executed, and therefore it turned out to be a dud, right? And while somebody else was able to, you know, really bring this thing up from the dirt. So, you know, what he says over here, like, you know, the only one doing, no, I'm trying to encourage everyone and trying to expose them to more. Okay. A lot of people get me, you know, misunderstand the whole purpose of my channel. And I put out the information the way that I do, because that's what really filters the people who really want to learn and really want to do something more and are sick of what reselling is, right? Because after you do it for a while, you realize, okay, I learned what I needed to learn. This is the stomping ground. This was the tutorial. That's great. Now, how do I do more? How do I expand? How do I get more established? And that's what this channel is all about, as opposed to romanticizing and sensationalizing what reselling is to you guys and say, yeah, you know what I mean? Once you do like, you know, 20 hokas, you do 40 hokas, and then you do 80 hokas, and then you just keep going on from there. Yeah, but the problem is, if you just keep trying to scale at volume, at some point it starts to get chaotic. And because the whole business runs on elbow grease, you will hit a physical cap at some point. What do you do when that happens? As well as the issue with the potency of your items, because nobody sources things at 100% efficiency. So what do they end up doing? They pack it up into mystery boxes, shove it off to other people. So everybody's just, you know, pushing the mud around. You don't want to be in that field, right? You want to have a good item, just like what Damian has, right? He has an item, he has the audience, and he sells his item to his audience week in and week out. You want to have something established like that so that you don't have to worry as much. And just like he said, right? Imagine if I had 10 items like this, right? Exactly. That's the whole goal. Okay, so the business you see on most of my videos is just a small part of what I do. I disagree, because the rest of the 40 minutes, the 30, so this was a 46-minute video that he put up, and the rest of the 35 minutes of that video is mostly about like all of his what solds for the week or something like that, right? So the point is that if you're still doing that much reselling, and reselling itself is very inefficient, kind of a time vacuum type of business, right? Then there's no way you have like all those what sold items and you didn't spend any time on those things, because all of that business is a, you know, buy one, sell one, exactly as he described it. If you're buying one and selling one, how is that any different than like, you know, clearing the table one dish at a time, as opposed to doing multiple items where you could clear the table by just collecting all the dishes at the same time, right? Loving something doesn't make it less efficient or more efficient, right? It just makes it more emotionally bearable. Anyways, so I tend to stick to that because most people don't want to expand into the 5 methods I just covered here, and that's okay. It's because most people can't expand to the 5 methods that you covered, because you didn't cover it in a way where they have actionable steps in order to get into it. Okay, so because you know the way he covered it in this particular video, the way I criticize it is that every single thing that he mentioned, including his own experiences, requires you to have some kind of a brand loyalty following and stuff, so that you could go ahead and market and promote the item. Everything that he listed and he put together are pretty much not SEO friendly nor SEO popular things. You have to create your own traffic. You have to create your own buzz. So He says, I have no right to try and force anyone to run their business how I think it's best. Okay. Nobody's forcing anybody in any of these channels. There's no way I could just reach out and grab you from, the video camera and stuff like that and make you do anything. You click on these videos is because I'm saying something different and you want to hear what I have to say. If you don't like what I have to say and you disagree with what I have to say and you don't want to do the things that I'm suggesting, then I don't understand why you come back and watch my videos week in and week out, right? I'm never going to say something to somebody where like, oh, you don't like my videos and then just don't watch, because how would you know that you didn't like the video unless you watched it? So thank you for giving me that initial chance. But for you to disagree with everything and then say, this is not what you want, and I don't want to make a lot of money, that I don't know why you keep coming back, So the next thing is that, of how I think it's best. Okay. See, here's the thing. If you've done more advanced types of business, you would be able to know what's best for other people, right? And that's why I'm able to suggest that, look, if you are a reseller and you want to level up, if you want to do something a little bit more introverted, then you could study up on a skill, a craft at home, and then start producing your own items. And then you just keep your head down and just keep doing that stuff, right? If you're more extroverted, then you are good at building relationships and stuff, then maybe you want to start dealing with a lot more wholesalers and establishing relationships so that you could get really good deals and build up your inventory. You know what I mean? These are real actionable steps, and that cater to the way people are and how they behave, so I could recommend what different levels is best for you. So knowing what's best for people is the reason why you have a channel, is the reason why people come to your channel, because they believe that you have good advice. So it's like, well, I'm not going to say that I know what's best. Then why do people come to your channel? That's so silly. So that's what bothers me with people like that Muppet. Okay, so I'm a Muppet. What he preaches isn't wrong. So am I right or am I a Muppet? Like, it's got to be one or the other. You got to pick one, right? So the problem comes when you poop on other people's way of doing what they want to do to run their business. Delivery and humility matters, my friend. Okay, see, this is exactly that sensitive kind of thinking, right? Ultimately, business doesn't care about your feelings. It is a living, breathing entity that you have to feed the beast no matter what. You still have to do the things that need to get done, right? So if you prioritize your feelings first, probably business is not going to be cut out for you, right? Because you can't just wake up and just be like, I don't feel like it, or I feel like it, I want to do this, or I want to do that. It can't be these things. You have to do the things that absolutely need to get done. And there is absolutely a right way and wrong way of doing business. When you compare your first quarter and your second quarter, it tells you one of three things, right? Either you are failing, or you are improving, or you are stagnant, right? So there's absolutely a right and a wrong answer. And when you compare different types of strategies and structures to each other, there is absolutely an inferior and a superior way of doing stuff. So don't take it as if like I'm saying I'm a better person than you. Nobody's saying that. I'm saying my strategies and my business acumen and what I have done is superior to the way you're currently doing business. And that's why when I come back and critique it the way that I do, and I say, look, this is super inefficient. When you really think about it, reselling is actually follows under the definition of what insanity is. You know what I mean? Even though it might be difficult for people to listen to because, this flips their whole worldview upside down. But if you can accept what I'm trying to say and really think about what I'm trying to say, right, it's going to help you in the long term, because I'm somebody who has done even more advanced things. And I'm trying to come back and help people. Anyways, so over here, right? So the problem comes when you the delivery and humility and stuff like that. Look, if you're going to be stuck on, you know what I mean, it's not what you said, it's the way that you said it, then it is what it is. I can't help that. Okay. If anything, I'm not going to change the way that I deliver my message, because I think the best part of it is that it really filters out people who want to try and people who are not having it either way. They're just going to be super stubborn about it. Okay. Because ultimately, every single YouTuber that you listen to, it's for you to go ahead and decide for yourself whether they're talking a bunch of nonsense or there's something that you really need to consider, right? And what's more beneficial for you is to go ahead and leave comments and ask me questions and then see how I respond to the questions rather than to just push back and try to win an argument or whatever. Because when you win an argument, you don't learn anything. You learn things from losing an argument. That's what's really important, right? So for the sake of truth and stuff, because I'm a big proponent of it, I'm always willing to lose the argument. However, nobody ever brings up specifically, hey, Pegasus, you said this, and therefore, you know, I'm going to quote you on that, and I don't think this is right because such and such. Like, nobody ever does that. Everybody always comes back and says, well, you don't know him, and you don't know his shoe size and what he's done and how he likes to take his eggs and what his zodiac. You know what I mean? It's always crazy things like that that I don't even know how to respond to. That is the usual pushback. So, over here, he says, you know, as far as responses go to Muppets like that guy, spell of a douche. Right? See, here we go with the personal stuff, right? I would never say that about somebody, but I'd rather let it go for now and focus on providing value to my viewers. Never let the shortage of people talking smack anyways, right? I think it's very dismissive to just like write off everybody specifically as talking smack. So it really depends on a case-by-case basis. So no matter what kind of positive or negative comments that I get, I always like read it first before I decide that this person is here just to blow off some steam or this person is here with actually some legit questions. But most of the time, the pushbacks that I get, they're not questions. There's just people who want to blow off steam. Anyways, guys, let's come back up to the top, right? So I gotta wrap this video up because I know that it went on for very long. I already tried to do this a couple of times and try to keep it under 2 hours. Hopefully I did that this time, but let's just end it here, okay? So that was the video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. And if you learned something, please consider subscribing. As always, see you guys in the next. Take care.